Joburg MMC for Housing, Mlungisi Mabaso, visited Ginger Park Informal Settlement yesterday along Witkoppen Road. That's north of Johannesburg yesterday. It's along that Bryanston sort of four ways area. Mabaso was there to assess readiness for relocation following safety and business concerns due to a reported increase in crime in that area. Mabaso joins me now for a further conversation on this. MMC, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. We're going to forgive the T-shirt this morning. But if we do get into this overall, I mean, and I was able to actually see an interaction that you had with one of the residents when it comes to what they're now wanting just for this relocation. I don't know if you're able to just share with us what it is you saw yesterday. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Pagatuayo. Greetings to yourself and the viewers at home. We went for a site inspection yesterday, but also to assess the area, considering that there is a plan for the relocation. But what we had learned when we arrived on site is that there is a guy who claims to own that place, considering that the owner of the property took the matter to court, and the city was then compelled to provide an alternative accommodation for those residents during the execution of the eviction order. And we are given up until the end of February next year to eradicate that particular informal settlement. To our surprise, when we got there, there is a man who claims to own that area. He's citing that he got papers which proves him as the owner, and he wants us to compensate him, his family, and his tenants before the relocation. And it's something that we do not understand. We're a bit confused by that because it's something that we did not expect when we went there, and it's something that we are going to deal with because we want to deal with these, assertions now from the hijackers to think that, they are owning, the city of Johannesburg. And also that, they can do as they please. They will resist, relocations and evictions, even when we are compelled by the court to intervene as the municipality. That informal settlement is growing. And part of the reason we went there is because people are refusing to participate. We had sent the team there to go and do the assessment, the audit and the profiling of the residents, because for us to provide an alternative accommodation, there is a policy in council that guide us, because not everyone will qualify for an alternative accommodation. So we've got that responsibility to conduct an assessment and also to profile the residents before we make a determination on who qualifies for what in the space. And out of 432, 201 refused to participate, and that's why I had to go there myself. But when I got there, I then learned that the reason they refused to participate is because there are hijackers who are claiming to own that particular place, and they want us as government to compensate them, and we are not going to do that.
Yeah, it's actually a very stark story. I have so many questions with regards to this. Firstly, are these people all South Africans? I think is a key question mark to also put out. And if they are, which part of the country perhaps they come from to settle here, or were they from other parts of Gauteng to then settle in this place predominantly? Are you aware of any of that as you did your audit? What was your assessment on that front?
Well, 143 are South Africans, and the rest we can't really say because they had refused to participate. Well, we do have undocumented foreign nationals that participated in the process, but majority we can't tell you because they are refusing to participate. And we are suspecting that the reason they did not participate is because they belong to certain individuals within the informal settlements, because even the guy that we were in confrontation with yesterday, he was claiming to be a South African, and we had asked for his documentation. Unfortunately, Home Affairs was not with us yesterday because we did not anticipate that we'll be confronted with that particular situation yesterday. But we took certain documents from him, We are going to verify them with Home Affairs today, and there are other documents as well that we are also verifying about the ownership of that particular properties, because there are certain properties there that are just outside the portion which is privately owned. And when we check on our system, those particular properties belongs to the provincial government, but there are certain people with certain documents which we need to verify so that we are able to open the case, because we are referring that matter to the police and also to the lawyers of the municipality, because we need to arrest that man, for charging people rent for all these years, for consuming services for free, in pretense that he's a landlord, but also, for interrupting the work that we are doing, because this is a court process that we are engaging on. So anyone who stands in the way of that, legally, we need to find ways of dealing with that particular person. So we are in that process. We'll be commencing those processes today of verifying certain document, but also on verifying his identification, because we feel that the identification that he had produced yesterday are fraudulent, and we need to verify them against Home Affairs.
MMC, is there these people are getting services? All right, they actually get. If you've driven past there, you would have seen that there are places that are lit up. They have satellite dishes of some sort. There's sewage running through that particular area. Where's all of that coming from if it is not issued directly from the city of Johannesburg?
You see, we've got two properties there. It's one big house that is situated in a portion of land that is owned by the province. So that particular house has all the services. They've got running water, they've got electricity, and there is also road infrastructure there, which is dilapidated because I think it was constructed long time ago. So services are there, and they've illegally connected from those properties, and that's why they are accessing water. And then there's a complex just adjacent to the informal settlement. It is well secured, but we suspect that some of the residents might have connected as well from the infrastructure of that particular complex. So there is a lot of assessment and investigations that we are doing on the ground, because what had happened previously is that, we were confronted with the court order, having not been to an area to conduct our own assessment so that we are able to understand what is happening within that particular informal settlements. But what we discovered yesterday is that there are a lot of illegal activities that are happening. Well, it's something that you will expect, because in most of the informal settlements, there are illegal activities. But what is happening there, it's beyond what we could have imagined before we went there.
MMC, who qualifies for this alternative housing? And where then do you relocate these people to?
Well, there are properties which we had identified that we will be working on in terms of providing services. But people that qualifies for alternative accommodation, as per our policy in Johannesburg, one is people that have not previously benefited from any of the housing programs that are subsidized by government. You must be a South African citizen, and you must be a person that earns below 3,500, because you would not have financial capacity to find accommodation for yourself. So anyone who's working, earning above 3,600, that person do not qualify for an alternative accommodation in a normal eviction. Well, with an evacuation, it's a different case altogether, because where you are expected to just move everyone out of the space, because it might be environmental issues, it might be because the building has been condemned and so forth. So with that, you move everyone out, and then after a certain period of time, then they are compelled to find accommodation for themselves. But with a normal eviction, that's why you need to do that assessment so that you are able to determine those that will be rendered homeless when the eviction occurs, because they do not have financial capacity to provide accommodation for their family. So those are the people that you provide alternative accommodation for, or people that had not previously benefited in any of the government programs. So those that have benefited previously in a form of RDP houses and other programs in government, they don't qualify for alternative accommodation. Those that have financial capacity, those that are working, earning above 3,500, they don't qualify for alternative accommodation. So that is the assessment that we need to do in that informal settlements, complete it so that we know how many people will qualify for an alternative accommodation.
Yeah, it's going to be very important to do that. But what about those that then aren't South African? What happens to them? Because as you said, they'll just pop up somewhere else and having created their own informal settlement too. And also what happens to those that are earning less than 3,000 or earning more than 3,500 but still can't afford to get themselves housing? What happens to them?
Well, the policy says because we've got different typologies within human settlements. So you've got your low cost, you've got your social and other housing typologies where we can refer them, assist them with the application, and when there are spaces, then we can then allocate them into those houses. But our policy is very clear because we only assist when the person will be rendered homeless. And that's what even the constitutional judgment which compels the local authority to provide alternative accommodation says that you need to do an assessment. So if there's a risk for homelessness, that's where then the local authority must provide an alternative accommodation. So it's not a blanket approach where you just provide because there's an eviction. It doesn't work like that. And even our policy, because part of the things that the constitutional court judgment compelled the city to do was to formulate its own alternative accommodation, the provision of alternative accommodation policy, which we're able to do in 2021. And since then, we've been guided by that particular policy in provision of alternative accommodation in Johannesburg. Foreign nationals, Home Affairs, will then have to come and see how they best deal with that, because every time when we conduct these operations, when we do evictions, when we work on providing alternative accommodation, we always work with Home Affairs and they are able to assist us. But when Home Affairs is not there, law enforcement agency is able to invoke Section 41 of Immigration Act, which empowers the law enforcement agencies to deal with the foreign nationals within the country. Then they will take them to the police station for processing, and that's where Home Affairs then come in that process. So we are going to work with Home Affairs in this regard so that they are able to assist us with the foreign nationals. But our policy does not make provision to provide alternative accommodation to the foreign nationals. So that is the council policy which is going to guide us in this process. Yeah,
there's still so much to actually ask about that. And then there's also questions around tracking, whether the urban sprawl and urban migration becomes a big question mark. But I also have to move on to questions like in Doornkop as well, the informal settlement in that area. What happens there? Have you been able to look into it? And will you be able to find a way to help that family which has had this building collapse? And do we know why that building collapsed as well?
Well, we saw the news yesterday. It's only today that we will be dispatching the team from human settlements. Even though there is not much as human settlements we can do in the area after the investigation has been completed, because we still need to understand whether the structure there had approved a business plan. So development planning and EMS in the city assist with that matter, because they need to conduct an investigation to determine how the structure was constructed in the first place, whether the structure is compliant with the building control of the city of Johannesburg, but also if the area as well is proclaimed as a formalized township. So there are a lot of investigations that must be conducted before we could arrive at a determination of the assistance and the intervention that the government can put in there. But development planning and EMS are working on the matter, and they will advise us once the matter has been finalized. But Department of Human Settlements, because it talks to settlements of people, will be involved in the process. We'll be working with them. But we will see how we intervene after we have completed our investigation, which is going to guide us in terms of how we intervene as the municipality.
MMC for housing in the city of Joburg. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. To just try and get an understanding, that's the visit of Ginger Park Informal Settlement that was done. It's an area around Bryanston Four Ways area that there was an oversight visit by the Joburg MMC for housing and other officials yesterday, plus other informal settlement housing and housing questions. And of course, it really relates to our question this morning, our poll question, and we asked you, the viewer, what's the